Greetings and bienvenue, Midnight Crew. Thank you for returning to this broadcast, and welcome to new viewers joining us for the first time. If you like a video, then feel free to subscribe.
Anyone got some horror stories of true events that actually happened to them? Paranormal is even better.
Got a few stories my mom told me a while ago. Thought you all might like it. She worked as a doctor for a very long time. She retired at 92. I don't want to say what specific branch because she was a big name player too. If you work in the field, you'd know her name. She's been all over the world, mainly South America and Europe. And she said her favorite story was when she lived in the USSR for a year to train some doctors as part of some medical program. It was a while since I've heard these stories, so they might not be accurate entirely though. Be around 1955, be my mom, about 22. Just finished a 4-month Russian language program in the US. Steps off the plane in Moscow, get interrogated by secret police. This will become a theme. She always described the interrogators as being nicer than she expected. She assumed they did not want to do anything too big to an American. Anyways, after like 2 hours of questioning, they let her go. Step out of the airplane, immediately fall in love with the area. Her and her doctor friends are allowed to wander the city for a while. KGB tour guides are nearby, but not too overbearing. Eventually, they get herded onto the bus and taken to the US Embassy, answer questions and given basic info in case something goes wrong. Says the Soviets were more worried than the Americans because, as they were told later, if they got hurt or killed or whatever, then it would be blamed on the guides. Gets introduced to her handler, an American dude named Frank. Genuinely shocked to meet another American, has the thickest Southern accent she has ever heard. No time to question it, they have a bus ride to catch. Get introduced to their Soviet counterparts. Very polite, well-mannered. Apparently my mom's secretary was really interested in one of the Belarusian doctors. She reminded him this was not a dating show. Get shown their new medical facility. She would later learn 90% of the job was dealing with hangovers or sending people off to deal with broken bones after doing stupid shit. Assigned 2 Ukrainian doctors, Ivanka and Maria. Maria was a very quiet girl. Apparently got traumatized after finding some unexploded ordnance from World War II and almost getting killed from it. Ivanka was just a massive rhymes with witch. Mom hated her, but she knew her shit. The doctor's office they were assigned to was not too bad. Definitely needed some work though. Mom gives Ivanka and Maria a basic quiz on how to prepare an office for patients. Maria just copies what Ivanka does. Sanitizing beds, organizing tools, basic shit. Mom chuckles to herself as she finds an old copy of the Communist Manifesto in a cabinet. Has to stop because of the first patient coming in. Just a heads up, I didn't become a doctor, so I'm just parroting what I remember. Russian dude who broke his foot. Absolutely howling with pain. Asks how he broke it. It is not lethal, but not great. Apparently he broke it while hunting with his friends and fell down a ditch. Tells Ivanka to give him painkillers while Maria prepares x-rays. The only x-ray machine is broken. Bliat.jpg. Basically has to guess. Gives him antibiotics and prepares to gauze it up. Asks Ivanka to get crutches. Ivanka tells Maria to get it. Maria sighs and goes to grab them. Mom sits and talks with a Russian guy while dealing with his foot. Apparently he fought in Iran. Tells Mom stories about his service, about meeting Brits and Australians. Says Brits were alright, but he hated Australians. Mom could not remember why when she was telling me the story. He is calm now, freaking out less. Mom talks about her time in Argentina and Chile working to help doctors there. Maria returns with crutches. She teaches a Russian dude to walk on them, does some paperwork and sends him on his way. She teaches Ivanka and Maria to make conversation while dealing with the patient to calm them down. Maria has opened up a bit. Maria and Mom do paperwork. Ivanka goes to smoke a cigarette. Apparently, Maria has never left the USSR, so she asks my mom tons of questions about her experiences. Frank walks in with a clipboard, asks to speak to my mother. expects to get a dressing down for talking about the outside world. She liked Moscow, but she was not stupid. Instead, Frank just asks Mom about the US. Apparently, he immigrated to the USSR when he was 19 in the 30s. After getting tired of the South, he was curious how the US was holding up. Talks about the shit he has seen in the US, about how much he loves Soviet Russia, etc., etc. Mom talks about FDR, Truman, and Eisenhower and the stuff they have done. Frank is not impressed with any of them. She asks how he joined the KGB. Cannot talk about it. Oh well, back to work. Fast forward about a month. Ivanka can basically do the job herself. Maria is making good progress. Maria is really good at talking to patients. Ivanka has increasingly begun chastising Maria for being too talkative. If it was something political, it would be reasonable, but Ivanka is just being a witch. Mom figures Ivanka is good enough to do her own work, so she requests she be given a duty station on her own. Granted, Ivanka is much happier. Mom says Maria breathed a sigh of relief, starts doing much better. Still incredibly nervous. Mom invites Maria out to dinner to cheer her up. Maria warns her about Soviet restaurant quality. Mom thinks she is exaggerating. Damn near breaks down like twice in the restaurant. Decides to just buy food and cook. Copies a recipe she learned in El Salvador for pupusas. Maria is flabbergasted on how she can afford the ingredients. She is being paid an American wage. In Soviet Russia, it is about 10 times as much. Mom was told not to go bragging about it for obvious reasons. Makes like 40 for the entire band of doctors. KGB guys are confused why they smell like they just got back from a Taco Bell. One has to leave the room laughing after one of my mom's doctors rants about the specifics of how to make proper pancakes. KGB general is not impressed. They get reassigned to Vladivostok. By the way, this has all been a precursor to the main /X/ part. I had to build up because it is all essentially also funny. Get relocated to Vladivostok. Everyone hates it. Negotiate with the US company that sent them, so it is decided they are going to stay only for about 2 more months instead of the normal amount of time. Work near some merchant section of the port treating sailors. Get given an address for the clinic they are supposed to head to. After about half an hour bus ride after getting off the plane, finally make it to the area. Not there. The building is fucking missing. Driver's fucking flabbergasted. It is not cordoned off. It is not destroyed or under repairs. It is gone. Driver makes a call. In like 10 minutes, about 50 cops turn up. Mom says she got questioned for about 5 hours in a nearby office. She mentioned that most of the intelligence guys she talked to were usually calm but hard to read. But these ones were just as confused as they were. Sent back to Moscow. Same work. Mom eventually meets back up with Maria. Maria is overjoyed. Mom takes to befriending Frank. After a few months, she decides to ask about the incident. Frank apparently heard about a bridge near Omsk when he first moved to the country that did the same thing. But the KGB really does not like when their officers talk about stuff like that. I'm wondering if anyone else has heard stories like that. Also, if anyone's curious, after the USSR collapsed, Maria came to the US and met up with my mom. Apparently, they still send each other letters. If there's any other questions, then I'd be willing to answer them.
In Soviet Russia, even extremely prominent public figures risked being basically deleted from reality if they pissed off the party. Not just executed, but erased from official photographs and publications, while everyone just pretends you never existed. I don't have any concrete examples of a whole building being disappeared. But if some facility in Vladivostok was suspected of anti-Soviet activity, then getting quietly wiped off the map is 100% plausible.
Just woke up. Forgot the thread was still open on my computer. My mother stressed to me it wasn't destroyed. There were no ruins, as if it was dynamited. It was like there was no building.
Not paranormal, but I woke up one morning to a cop kicking my bed, a flashlight in my face, and him demanding to see my hands. He said my roommate and best friend hurt himself, and they were taking him to the hospital. I got dressed, went out and looked into his room, and it was like a murder scene. Blood everywhere, on his bed and pillows, computer chair, the floor, and a blood trail downstairs and out the front door. He'd gotten very drunk, cut his wrist, and hit some kind of artery or some shit. Stumbled downstairs and basically sat on the porch to die. I slept through the whole thing. I wasn't drunk. He'd opened the bottle after I went to bed. So the only reason he didn't bleed out was because he posted some weird shit on Facebook and someone was worried and called the cops. He survived and is doing better than ever, so that's great. But cleaning up that blood was horrific.
Be me about 4 months ago. Last year of college, living in a pretty shitty house in sketchy part of town with all kinds of problems. A lot of mold, bad plumbing, etc. Live there with 3 roommates. Get decently fucked up most nights, and sometimes roommates forget to lock the front door like idiots. 3 or 4 a.m. Wake up to the sound of my bedroom door opening and figure it is just my cat. Try to go back to sleep. Hear the drawers at the foot of my bed open and close. End of the bed starts moving like someone is trying to push it or is bouncing on it. What the fuck? Sit up in bed and see a figure crawling on their hands and knees, crawling right out my door. Is the spooky racketeer story actually happening to me? Do not know what to do, just sit there. Hear someone burst out into laughter for 2 seconds in the hallway outside my door, and then suddenly stop laughing. My door is wide open, but it is too dark to see what is out there. A few minutes later, hear my front door close and eventually fall back asleep. The next day, I talked to my roommates about this, and similar things happened to them. One roommate woke up to someone sitting at the end of their bed, and when they made eye contact, the guy sitting there started laughing. Another woke up to a woman grabbing him and then whispering, "Oh, sorry," and leaving. The other roommate was smart and had his bedroom door locked. We looked up police reports, and it turns out that a group of 3 or so people had been breaking into houses on our street and screwing with people in the same ways they did in our house. The weirdest part is that they never stole anything, just pranked or groped a bunch of people sleeping in their bedrooms and eventually left. As a kid and even in high school, I thought it was fun to spook myself before bed by reading scary stories of mysterious home intruders and bad creepypastas like The Rake. I'd always be afraid to go to sleep after, thinking something would come into my room at night. But for some reason, while it was actually happening, I wasn't afraid, just confused. Even now, I don't lose any sleep over it and forget it even happened most of the time. I'm not sure why that is, though. Anyone else have something spooky happen to them IRL, but then not really be affected by it?
I sometimes hear voices as I'm falling asleep or waking up. It's a completely normal experience, called hypnagogia, I think, that most people experience at least once. One day I was lying in bed and I heard faint voices, muffled as though they were coming from the next room. There were at least 3, but I couldn't pinpoint the words. I realized I was hallucinating, and I focused on listening harder. A few seconds later, a female voice whispered urgently into my ear, "Eat your vegetables." I woke up and pissed myself laughing.
Have a short one, but it's not that scary. I was coming home from the last day of college before summer. Downstairs. Shout up to my roommates, 2 of them, upstairs if they wanted to go to local bar. Shout, "Yes," and hear them getting ready. Wait about 2 minutes for them to come down. Nothing. My whole body freezes as I remember they are on holiday for 3 weeks. Maybe they have not left yet. Walk upstairs. Nobody there. Go on the WhatsApp face call and see my friends are in Spain. Run out of the house and walk about for hours in a local town, confused and scared. Seriously, this actually happened to me. The landlord did tell us that the house is haunted, but we never believed her. Nothing has ever happened since then, and I hope to God it never does. The door was locked coming in, as my roommates always lock it when leaving, but I thought nothing of it when walking into the house, as I thought they weren't leaving for Spain until the next day, and we agreed we would have a few drinks before they leave.
I had a friend that was possessed. Be younger me in high school, have a lot of friends. Fast forward, all of my friends end up either jobless or poor or addicts, etc. Except for one, let us just call him T. So T goes off to medical school, gets good grades, and becomes a registered nurse. He works 2 jobs, makes good money, has a smoking hot wife and kids, and a nice paid-for house. Literally doing better than anyone I know my age. The guy was drug-free, would not even smoke pot. I only ever knew of him drinking beer casually. He was friendly, nice. Nothing was ever amiss with T. He was a dependable friend that was there for everyone. I meet up with him after 6 years, and he is doing better than ever. One day we are sitting and talking and watching YouTube videos together. All of a sudden T gets quiet and he acts like he has a mild seizure. This stuns me and I start to think he is having a heart attack or stroke or something. Then as fast as it happened, he came to. T, what the fuck, man, are you okay? He says, yeah, I am. The night proceeds as normal. Then about 3 hours later, he stops mid-conversation again and starts acting weird. I ask if he is okay and ask if he has seizures, and if that is normal, he says no, never. I say okay, and he acts normal again. Then he starts randomly saying things about spiritual stuff regarding occultism. He never talks like this. I realize something is up. Then he stops. I start to get weirded out, and it was late, so I went home. I mentioned to our other friends what happened to him a few days later. My friends went quiet and said they noticed him acting strange before also. I asked them about it, and they all tell me they went out one night to a graveyard and drank with T one night, and that he all of a sudden acted possessed. It freaked them out, and he was so strange and erratic that they loaded him into a car to take him to the emergency room. He came out of it in the car on the way and acted normal, so they decided to take him home. One of his friends told us all to our surprise that after that day, T had told him he thought he was possessed. And what was even weirder, his friend told us that T would go back to that graveyard at night occasionally alone. This made all of us think he was some weird cultist or something. 4 or 5 months pass and I do not hang out with him, until one day a friend calls me up and says, hey, did you hear what happened to T? I said, no. What? He said, bro, he is in prison for like a decade or more. What the fuck, what happened? Friend explains that T one day did not go to work, and his wife found him sitting at the table in the kitchen. She asked, why are you home and not work? He laughs and tells her he is about to do something. According to his wife, he was acting strange. So T gets up and leaves without explanation. He then goes to 2 local businesses and robs them at gunpoint, stealing thousands in cash. He then was arrested and sent to prison. His wife was baffled. He owned his home, had no debt, and they had money in the bank. When he was caught, police interviewed the clerks he robbed. They all say his eyes were rolled up into his head, and that he was saying weird things they could not understand. Then he pulls the gun with his eyes still rolled and says, give me your money. Turns out he had no drugs in his system, and he was not even drunk or anything, yet he acted this way. This shit reminds me of Dahmer or something, honestly, and how he was possessed also. All of my friends now actually believe he was possessed.
My mother's family used to live on the countryside, and they have a ton of stories involving La Llorona, kind old ladies appearing on a supposedly deserted building cleaning stuff on repeated occasions several decades apart, but having the same appearance, weird guys on black clothes raiding on horses asking for people's names at 5 a.m. and such. I used to make fun of this stuff until this happened to me. Not that spoopy. Be in high school. Wake up at 3 a.m. for a piss. Finish pissing. About to open the bathroom door. Hear the sound of someone just outside the door, dragging their feet and pacing to and fro wearing slippers. Figure it is just mom or sis waiting for me to finish. Open the door. No one was outside. Probably an auditory hallucination. They are common enough, and maybe I was half asleep still. A couple of weeks later. Same shit happens. Taking a piss at about 3 a.m. Get spooked, but think rationally through it. I wash my face at the sink, pinch my arm, and wait for 5 minutes. Surely that will wake me up for good, and if it is a hallucination, it will pass, right? Nope. The sound just continued the same as before, someone dragging their slippers back and forth outside the bathroom. Adrenaline rushes in. Quickly open door. Fucking nothing again. Never before or after has something weird happened in my house, and while I don't believe in witches and shit, I now wholeheartedly believe that there's some unexplained stuff going on.
some Hollywood elites were going to gentrify my city. They decided going to war was the best way to ruin everything, then scoop up the land on the cheap. They designated my specific area as the zoo and paid people at the zoo and parks and services to move shit like monkeys and boars to a wooded area next to my property. They wanted high-end snuff flicks with wild animals maiming and killing people because elites are just soulless things wearing human skin. It always goes wrong. They never manage to get the animals to attack the proper targets. They attack the handlers when released from the truck, or upper middle-class people who had knowledge of what was to happen. An expensive, large predatory bird crashed through someone's window and severely injured them in a fairly expensive neighborhood nearby. I believe he died, but I'm not sure. A couple monkeys bit people in the apartments and at a football game. Poisonous snakes flooded from a drainage reservoir right beside my house and poured across the state. Fucking downright biblical. No one here hurt, but many bit across the state. Must have at least been a few thousand. They sent people from out of state to camp on the property next to mine so they could start shit, and they died left and right. Many had guns and were braggarts. They proclaimed how mighty they were, and they were afraid of nothing. It got so bad they put an alligator in the pond to clean up the mess. The frogs are poisonous, and so are the snakes. Sounds crazy, right? Cannot be true. Law enforcement would have to come get the bodies. Nope. I believe that is an exact quote from the sheriff. Nope. That guy. Then there was a flood, and that hit many of the very nice houses. There are some mansions, etc. Not a drop hit my house. The ground was not even soggy. The elites retreated but swore revenge. Now they have released more lab monkeys. Now begins the real battle. I apologize to Alabama, but you will have to take them when I am done.
Be 29 years old, working in Antarctica as a contractor since leaving the military. Had only been there for about 5 or 6 months and was relatively new. Provided basic security and ensured the workers never did anything they were not supposed to. Nothing ever happened. All workers are boring scientists and academics, not allowed to talk. It was a very calm night, and it sounded like bombs were being dropped a few clicks away. It was pitch black, but saw bluish or purple flashes way off in the distance. Asked my boss who I was in the army with what it was. Says the annoying fucks are trying to push their limits again. I say what? He says not to worry about it. Our fellow Americans over there are taking care of business. What kind of business, I ask? So the nerds here can study them more so we can permanently contain them. Tells me to shut the fuck up and do not ask again.
I have a really weird one. When I was around 8 years old and my grandfather was still alive, we would go visit him in his cabin out in the woods out in West Virginia every winter. It was pretty comfy for the most part, no internet, but I did not know what the internet was at that point, so I did not care. Warm fireplace, mounted animal heads and shit. My grandpa was a pretty nice guy, though he was kinda neurotic about the woods around him. He would always jump out of his chair at the tiniest sound outside, even though 90% of the time it was like a raccoon or something. This one time, though, there was a blizzard supposed to be coming in. It was all my grandpa kept talking about the entire weekend. My older sister, for some reason, had instilled in me the belief that the best time to go sledding was right before a blizzard, when the snow was freshly falling. Idiot that I was, I believed her, and I left the house without telling anyone so I could experience the perfect sled. I cannot believe how much of a moron I was. There was still a little bit of snow left on the ground from a few days prior, but it was mostly dirt at this point, so it was pretty easy to see the trail up to the top of the mountain. I took a flashlight with me just in case it got too dark, but it was overcast so I could still see well. I reached the top where we usually sled just as the big snowflakes started to fall, which meant the ground would be covered soon after. All I had to do then was wait. I was just sitting there waiting for the snow to fall like a dumbass. After about 30 minutes of watching the snow fall, I started to get second thoughts. I started looking around a bit more. Over the mountain range, you could see the dark clouds rolling in, and I mean like dark gray. Everything else seemed lighter in comparison, which was the first onset of an eerie feeling. That is when I started noticing how weird things were getting. Usually when a storm is rolling in like that, the wind really picks up and the snow really comes down hard. The snow was coming down still as can be. There was absolutely no sound other than my breathing. The sky started getting abnormally dark, but the snowy ground remained bright. Suddenly, a wave of dread washed over me for some reason. The eeriness of the whole situation was getting more apparent to me. I started to realize that I had not seen a single animal on my way up the hill, not even a single squirrel, which were very common in the area. The whole place seemed dead. That is when I saw it. While looking around at the tree line, I saw a white fox standing there, obviously looking at me. It stood there motionless like I had caught it while walking into the woods. The more I looked at it, I was enraptured by it. It seemed so graceful and wild, like it was an embodiment of nature itself. I wanted to walk up to it, like it was compelling me to follow. It sat down in the snow, staring at me. Even though it had to be at least 20 yards away, it felt like it was right in front of me. There was some sort of reassuring feeling in its eyes. I glanced down at its mouth, which was opening and closing in a really weird way. It looked like it was whispering. I was almost about to get up and walk toward it until I heard a faint cry from the direction of my grandpa's house, which had to be my family calling my name. I turned my head to hear it better, and it indeed was. I realized how hard the snow was falling and how freezing I felt all of a sudden, like I'd been in a trance and suddenly woke up. I wondered what the heck was going on until I realized. There are no white foxes in West Virginia. We had silver foxes, but they looked completely different to the one I was looking at, which looked like an Arctic fox. I turned back around to the fox. Dread shot through my body as I saw the fox standing on two legs, bipedal. It felt like a pit formed in my chest, and my face and limbs all got really hot, and my legs started carrying me away down the trail before I could think. I had never ran that fast in my life, booking it past all the trees on the trail. I saw the familiar orange glow of my grandpa's porch light where he stood shouting my name. I dove through the door before he could ask me where the hell I had been. I stayed inside for the rest of the stay and refused to look out any windows. I did not even bother to go back and get the sled I had left on the hill when I booked it that night. After we went back home, I refused to go back to my grandpa's. I had told everyone what I saw, but they all think my mind was playing tricks on me. Even my grandpa said he had not seen anything like that on the mountain. I kind of suppressed the memory of it for a while, wanting to believe it was a daydream, but that feeling of dread comes up whenever I see a picture of foxes. The feeling was all too real for a daydream. That is all I have got. My grandpa died last year in December. My parents and my sister went this week to sort through his belongings. They asked me if I wanted to go, but I once again refused. If I ever see that cabin again, it will be too soon.
Watching VHS tapes from the warehouse. Where? The warehouse. The movie ends. Go to put in next movie. Parents say, "Anon, let us take out the garbage first." Everyone gets up to gather garbage from the waste baskets. Notice we do not have any large garbage bags. Dad says, "There are some in the laundry room downstairs." Dad heads downstairs with my mother and I behind him, down the first flight of stairs to the landing, down the second flight of stairs to the ground floor, down a 10-feet hallway and take a right, down another hallway, 8 feet, and take a right into the laundry room. My mother and I had my father in sight for 95% of our journey. When we turned the corner leading into the laundry room, my father was nowhere to be found. "What the hell?" My mother and I start calling for my father, who replied from upstairs where we started. He says he never went downstairs with us. There was no way he could have gotten by us and gone back upstairs. He would have had to turn around to walk directly at us to get back upstairs. If I would have taken a double step, I could have touched my father or ghost.
I got a story too. I was 7 or 8 years old, and me and my family were staying for the holidays in a little holiday village. This village was in the south of Germany near a very small town.
We spent almost every summer there, often with other families. It was a nice place with little wooden cabins and bigger houses for bigger families. It had a playground, a hall for feasts, a little poolside and such. Also, it was in the woods. If you left this village at one side, you came across a canyon in the woods. It was a long descent, and loose rocks were all in your way. My friend Andy, of the same age, and I went down there a lot. The canyon stopped with walls on each side and a collapsed cave in front of you. We tried to enter that cave, but the more stones we loosened, the more came rushing after them. We found some cool bones down there, and little kids we were. We fantasized we found parts of a dinosaur's skeleton.
Then one day we wanted to investigate further and brought a shovel and a pickaxe to clear the rubble out of the cave's entry. I remember it was a Sunday because we sneaked away from the church that morning. So we left the village to the woods to find the opening of the canyon. When we were halfway down, I stopped for some reason and turned around. Behind me, I saw the figure of a man with long hair, and he was somehow shining. Also, the sun shone through the woods behind him, but I remember that he seemed to glow, so bright that I could not see his face or clothes. Just remember he had long hair. He reached a hand out to me and shook his head. I turned to tell Andy, and as we turned around again, the man was gone. He did not believe me about what I saw. I told him we should not go down there. I just had that feeling. He would not listen, and went by himself, saying I was a coward. I did not go after him, but left the shovel on the ground and ran to the church to tell my parents. I did, and showed them and his parents the way to the canyon. We got down there, and when we came to the bottom, no one was there. Just the pickaxe he brought stuck in the rubble. So Andy was gone, and he was nowhere to find. There was a whole police search, and the volunteer fire department had the cave opened. It was an entry to an old mine from probably 200 years ago. There was nothing to find except for other collapsed side tunnels and some more bones. Andy never came back.
I have another story. These things happened about a year after the holidays in the village. I have to say that my mother was very devout in her Christian beliefs. The maniac kind of devout. We were at a church where they did some kind of exorcisms and saw demons attacking everywhere and everyone. They expelled demons of cold when someone got the flu and such. They also did some weird things with me. They laid hands on me and spoke to me in unknown languages. So my mother got really uneasy and fearful at the time. She began to see the other people in church as animals, so with their human bodies but with heads like a pig or a goat or a wolf. Once the priest came to us and performed an exorcism on my mother. My older brother was there and comforting me in my room, while I heard my mother scream in the other room. My dad was a scientist, so he kinda gazed in disbelief to the whole situation. But he loved my mom and wanted to help her. On another occasion, my mother burned all my toys because she thought they were possessed by demons. Also, she locked our cats out on the balcony for the same reason. I can remember hearing them screaming with a volume like they were in the same room, everywhere in the flat. I remember I woke up one night, and my black cat, we had 4, was sitting on my chest and staring at me with abnormally big eyes, like tennis ball big. I had a very unsettling feeling and was not able to move. I just closed my eyes and fell asleep eventually. At another time, my parents and I were up to a little trip to the forest. As we entered, there were clouds of gnats surrounding us. They were literally eating us alive. It was so bad we had to turn around and head back for the car. The people we encountered on the trail had no problems with gnats at all, not one.
And then there was the incident when we were in the park. My father, my mother, and I were just sitting on a bench when dozens of crows sat beside us, at least 40 or 50. We stood up and all the crows flew off. Then there was that man following us when my mother and I went for groceries. He followed us and then disappeared.
and the man at the mall who came over to us. Total stranger. He lay his hand on my head and said, "So it will be." My mother ran off the mall with me. The worst thing was when my father came home from work, and my mother was clutching me with her arms in the back of the kitchen, and did not allow my father to come closer, because she said he had the eyes of a woman killer. My mother was hysterically screaming at him. I remember the eyes of my father sad and confused. It all stopped at some point when my mother left the church for another one. I guess she was schizophrenic or something and got brainwashed or triggered. That all made no sense for me, but was scary as hell for when I was a kid. And my mother thought of demons all the time. I have no reasonable explanation for some events till today, but I do not give it much thought. As an adult, I asked my father about this. He said that there were things happening that he could not understand. He was just happy that it was over. Also my mother. She has apologized many times and I do not blame her. My father died a year ago at 64.
Here's a fun story. In uni class, just generally have the appearance of a discontented asshole and frown a lot. The professor literally calls campus security because they think I want to come in with a gun and shoot people. Bear in mind, I have barely even ever spoken in the class. I have to go in and talk to the security, but fortunately nothing really comes of it yet. Fast forward 8 months later. Throw a hissy fit at another professor after failing a class and write him an email in which I said fuck once or twice and called him a jackass. Yeah, sure, it was inappropriate. Wish I had not sent it. I was young and stupid. It was a mistake. Either way, get contacted by the fucking rent-a-cops again over it. Have to go in and talk to the same Paul Blart again. This time she acts like I have some kind of record because of the first incident where a professor called security over literally nothing, literally interrogates me for over an hour. Really obviously trying to bait me into saying something about how I want to shoot up the school. Consistently reiterate over and over and over again that I have no desire to hurt anyone ever. She still has me involuntarily committed to a psychiatric ward for 72 hours. On the admittance paperwork, she said I was a threat to others because during the interview I admitted I was mad at the professor and had access to weapons. I said I was mad at the professor, but I do not own any weapons or have access to any. After getting out, tried to find a recording of the interview to prove I did not say anything about weapons. Security say they do not have the recording. Never trusting a rent-a-cop ever again.
I hope that you enjoyed tonight's broadcast. If you enjoyed tonight's story, then please subscribe to the channel as more Greentext will appear daily. A new broadcast will appear when the clock strikes midnight Central Time.